everyone, we're here with Jason Schultz from Idle Throne. I almost forgot there for a second. My freaking like, eh. Uh, Jason, I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your night to hang out and chat with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, right on. So, Idle Throne, you guys been around for about 6 years, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's gone pretty quick, but we had the year that disappeared in there, right, in
Yeah,
2020. So, I always go back and I'm like, really? We've been doing it for 6 years, but we have. It's crazy.
yeah. Well, like, that whole 2020 really fucked, I think, a lot of people's timelines up, you know?
Yeah, big time, big time.
So what got you started into playing music?
Oh, wow. So yeah, let me go back here. It's crazy because I think 2024 is 20 years of playing for me. Which is wild to think, right? We talk 6 years, seems like a long time to be doing a band,
Yeah.
but 20 years, right, to be doing anything, let alone playing guitar. But yeah, like if I trace it back for me, so we had kind of like the neighborhood group of kids, right? Because I was a teenager at the time, like early 2000s, go back. And I had a buddy who, we were good friends. His name was Kevin. And actually, I just texted him the other day, just kind of reconnected because I haven't spoken with him in a while, but he's a real cool guy. And he always would hang out in his garage, his parents' garage on the block, and he would pull his amp out. He'd pull out his Jackson with the pointy headstock, and he'd be listening to, Peace Cells, Rust in Peace, The New Order, any number of Overkill records, right? And he would always play along to it. And I just thought it was so cool. I was being exposed to this music, heavy music, because prior to that, it was still a lot of my parents' music. It was classic rock and, that sort of stuff. And I had kind of dabbled in like punk rock. I was getting into bands, Bad Religion, Pennywise, Dead Kennedys, Ramones, that was kind of me finding my own music. But when I saw him kind of playing metal and just the whole aesthetic of it, the black jeans and the band shirts and the high top white sneakers and listening to all this cool music and looking at the pictures and all the liner notes, of all the 80s stuff. It was just so cool, and I was just really struck with it. So the more him and I started hanging out, I just really wanted to be involved in whatever way I could. And, I started growing my hair out again. I had long hair when I was like a kid, but I had short hair, when I was growing up. So I started growing my hair out again. And I remember that Christmas 20 years ago, I asked my folks for a guitar, because I wanted to just kind of bang out some rhythm stuff. I wanted to be a rhythm guitarist. And they got me a guitar. It was a Squire. I still have it. I'm glad. A lot of people get rid of their first instruments, but I still
Yeah.
have mine, which I'm super happy with. But yeah, luckily we had access to like the library of metal. His older brothers had this amazing record collection. So he was handing me 20 CDs on a Friday, and here's your homework, man. Check it out.
Study. Yeah.
Yep. And I just like a sponge, man. I just soaked it all up and, just found that I really loved it. So I always tell people it was like a switch flipping for me. It was me before. It was like trying to be a skateboarder, trying to do all this stuff, normal kid stuff, middle school, high school. And then it was like I got into metal and guitar and the switch flipped. And here we are 20 years
It's like,
later and
yeah.
never switch back, and I hope it never does. I mean, I love it. So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
what was it like? Was there a part or an aspect to the music that really drew you to it?
Yeah, for me, I think you always hear a lot of people, I think that maybe their intro into heavy music was punk rock. You hear them say they were drawn to like the aggression of it.
Mhm.
And then when they say, okay, well, what got you into metal? Like what was the thing that pushed it over the edge? It's like really the sophistication of metal, I think, with the aggression of punk, right? Because that's really what drove me, I think, to punk and what connected with me was I loved how just pissed off it was, right?
Yeah.
But then metal, it was like this pissed off music, and you're seeing it played by people that really like put the time and the effort into, really kind of nail the instrument or kind of expand on that in some way. So I think for me that it was just the sophistication of it I just loved. And I love the riff, that was always the big thing for me. Back then it was, and even now it still is, just kind of like the a palm muted, chunky, Bay Area middle section of a song, just something really heavy, Exodus and
Yeah.
Testament and Metallica and that sort of stuff. It just really resonated with me. Just gave me that feeling, the riff face. My wife always jokes around. It's like you know,
Yeah.
still, right? It's
Yeah.
just a feeling. And if you get it, you get it. If you don't get it, you don't. You might never get it, right? It's just one of those things that connects.
Yeah.
So I
So
feel like,
so funny. You see the meme that's like, when the dude's face is like, ooh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a good riff. And I was at a show actually just the other night, and I look over at this table and this guy's like, he's just kind of there, and then guy starts singing and he goes, ooh, and I'm like, oh, there it is.
Yep.
Like that's the face we
Oh
always look
man,
for.
that's for me still the best thing. Like whenever we're on stage and we're playing, that's like the best compliment you can get. You see people in the crowd and they do like the stank riff face, like
Mhm.
oh yeah, man. That's like I'm up there, mid song, and if I see that, it's like, oh yeah, okay, we're doing the right
We're
thing.
we're nailing it. Hell yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
That's awesome. So, when did Idle Throne come together? Or how did Idle Throne come together? Because
Yeah, yeah. So myself and the other kind of co-founder and co-lead guitarist with me in the band, Martin Bowman, we both had roots kind of in the local, like Northwest Indiana. I wouldn't say Chicago because it is a pretty clear delineation between Chicago scene and our scene. But we were kind of in remnants of some Northwest Indiana bands, and we're all in high school and we're all kind of coming up. There were a million people that were, in bands and played guitar, played whatever, did things. And then as time went on, it's kind of like we've all whittled away, and it's like we're all in our 30s now, and it's like the people that stuck with it and still are serious about it. So there's only a handful of bands in the area, right? But it was
yeah,
like our bands we had in the early 2010s kind of, I don't want to say they fell apart, but just things changed, right? People kind of moved away, or the priority shifted or whatever. So he had a band called Farwatch that was kind of a prog metal, prog rock sort of thing, female fronted vocals. Um, Really cool, really like in the mold of kind of like early 90s Dream Theater sort of stuff. So, that's right up my alley. I mean, I love all that stuff. And I had a progressive metal band that was a little bit more in the vein of like, if I had to describe it, it'd be kind of like Behemoth meets Between the Buried and Me meets Nevermore, called
okay.
Mind's Horizon. 7 strings, long songs, 15-minute long songs, tons of, guttural, growly vocals, clean vocals, kind of a mix of everything in the kitchen sink, right? And that was, kind of what we did as far as the local shows and the local scene. So we knew of each other. We've been friends for a really long time. And we always talked about jamming, but nothing really ever came of it. And that band was kind of on the outs. Mind's Horizon was kind of on the outs, not really doing anything. My partner in that band, Kyle, had moved away for a while. He was attending school, so that wasn't really doing anything. So I saw him at a brewery, local brewery. And at the time I lived like a block away. So I was there all the time, of course. And I was like, hey man, how you doing? Oh, good, and we were just kind of chatting. This was like late 2018. And I kind of brought up the idea again of maybe jamming, we doing something, and he was really into the idea, really open to it. And I said, okay, cool. Well, give me a call, if you feel like jamming or you got some riffs or whatever. Thinking, yeah, maybe he'll call, maybe not, whatever. Maybe I'll follow up, maybe I won't, how things go. So I ended up giving him, or he gave me a call. Sorry, he gave me a call about 2 weeks later and was like, yeah, man, I got some riffs. Let's jam. So came over to my place and we ironed out, I think it was the songs and the riffs that would become The Labyrinth and Sacred Fire, which are on our first record, Sibylline Age, which came out in 2022.
Yep.
And just the chemistry was there immediately. It was like, yep, because we have a lot of the same influences. We're both big Shrapnel Records, shred guys, neoclassical, solos, all that sort of stuff. We both kind of have that progressive background, but a lot of the bands I mentioned a minute ago, right? I'm a big like Bay Area thrash guy,
Mhm.
and he's a big like US power metal guy. So he really wanted to do something that had like some Vicious Rumors and Liege Lord and bands like that of that ilk. And I really wanted to do something that was like Heathen and Testament and some Forbidden influences, Exodus, right? Get a little heavier, but still be melodic. And it just worked. We just had a really good kind of ebb and flow and yin yang. He's like the classically trained music theory prodigy, and I'm the taught myself how to play, hear it all in my head sort of guy. So we have a really good thing, and yeah, as we kind of went on, and we just got the rest of the guys involved. They're just all local, friends. We're all friends first. I mean, we're all the local musicians that kind of stuck with it, but we've all been friends for a really long time. Our singer Jake was in Mines Horizon with me. He was one of my groomsmen at my wedding. I mean, we've been
Right
friends
on.
for a long time. So yeah, just kind of everyone jumped on the train after that. 2019, I think we got Aaron, our drummer, involved. 2020, we got Jake involved. Had a few bassists at this point, but that core of the four of us has always kind of been there since the early days. So
It's funny, a lot of bands always have that one position that tends to rotate a lot, S-
yeah.
I feel like so I'm in Louisville, right? Not too far from you, a few hours.
Hmm.
Um, Here it's drummers. I feel
Yeah,
like a
sure.
lot of bands, the drummers just rotate.
Yep, totally. Yeah, for us, it's been the bass. Same thing. All the former bassists of the band, we're all good friends with them still. I mean, there's no animosity or hard feelings whenever they, had to exit the band. It wasn't like we kicked them out or anything like that. Just, it was time or whatever. So we'll see if we have a permanent situation with the basis. Right now, we're playing with, funny enough, my friend Kyle, who is kind of my co-writer partner in Mines Horizon. So right now, Idle Throne is 3/5 of what Mines Horizon used to be. And Kyle's playing bass, and he's doing a great job. He's been playing with us for a couple months now, since Trevor, who is on the new record, he recorded and wrote all the bass parts for Clarion Call. He exited the band a few months ago, so we've been playing with Kyle. Didn't really skip a beat, had a bunch of shows that we were able to stay on. We didn't have to drop any shows or anything, which was great because that was my fear. It's like we
Yeah.
got some good momentum going and you want to keep up with it, right? So, but yeah, great group of guys and just such awesome musicians. It's so great to play in a band like that where they're constantly, it's like the knife, right? I feel like if I'm a knife, I'm constantly being sharpened by playing with these guys because you got to keep up, you got to do your homework,
Yeah.
a lot
Well,
of practice and rehearsing and just staying on top of it.
what do they say? Iron sharpens iron, right? So
Yeah, I
you,
love that. That's true,
you know,
absolutely.
you get
So,
in there with talented people and you're like, oh, I can't just like slack off.
yeah,
I've
yep,
I've got to be on top of it. And I think it's good for all of us to really push as far as we want to go, right? Sometimes it's
totally. Yeah,
uncomfortable, but breaking those walls is real nice.
yeah.
So I was going to ask you a question. I just went, phew. How often do you guys get to play out?
We've been trying to do like at least 2 shows a month right now. That's been kind of like the push, So I think we've been pretty good with that since the beginning of the year. Because last year, the whole second half of last year was kind of intermittent shows because we were recording the record. We were finishing up everything. Um, I think we went and we did drums like last March or April. And then after that, Martin and I recorded all the guitars, we did all the bass, then we went in for vocals and kind of all the finish up stuff like around October, November. And then we sent it off to get mixed and mastered over the holidays, more or less around, New Year, Christmas. So really since then, since January, I think we've been doing about 2 gigs a month and try to do, a lot of local stuff. We do a lot of like Chicago shows. We've been down to Indy quite a few times. Try to do our little bubble. We played out like Cleveland. We've played up in Madison. We played Blades of Steel last year. So we kind of have this bubble, the bubble of the Midwest. And for me, the big goal in the new year and hopefully off the heels of the record that is about to come out in a few weeks, we'll have the opportunity to kind of play some of these more regional fests. There's tons of cool fests that are up. I know they didn't have it this year, but there's like Stormbringer on the East Coast, which I feel like we'd fit really well in with. We've played Legions of Metal, we've played Blades of Steel. I'd love to play it's Mile High Power Fest in Denver. That's a brand new one this year. Our friends Traveler playing that. And then there's
Two
what
minutes
is
to, I feel like you guys would fit in 2 minutes to Tulsa real good too.
Yeah, that's another one. I've had my eye on that one as well. I got to play Hell's Heroes with my other band Wraith a few years ago. That was last year. That was an incredible experience. I went this year with a few of the guys, Jake and Aaron from Idle Throne went with me this year with a few of our other friends, and that was a great experience. We just had a ton of fun for 3 days. So that would be one I'd love to play. And then there's Hyperspace in, I think it's in Canada. I want to say it's in Pacific Northwest, but it's on the Canadian side, kind of outside of Seattle. And that's a great fest too. There's tons of cool kind of power metal adjacent bands, you know. But that's the thing too for us, right? Because it's like the sound is interesting. I always tell folks it's like kind of power thrash because a lot of power metal, if you look at like the Euro power scene, like that's not really what we're doing. But at the same time, too, if you look at a lot of true like full-blown thrash bands, right? Thrash with a capital T, we're a little bit more melodic than that. There's some
Mhm.
power metal influences. So we're kind of in this gray area right now where it's like when we look at festivals like that, you try to figure out what fests would work, right? Or what would fit for the sound. Because it's
Yeah,
the thing too, there's a lot of fests that are very like traditional metal focus, especially in Europe. You know, I'd love the opportunity to play some of those. You got like Keep It True and all these other fests, but then it's like we're there's some traditional elements in what we're doing, but we're not a traditional metal band, you
right.
know. And I certainly think as we continue on, we're probably moving further away from that and further into some other avenues too. So, you know, it's always just kind of trying to keep a finger on the pulse and see what's out there and see what fests are popping up and just try to stay aware of that because a lot of those fests book 2 years out too. So you might be reaching out saying, "Hey, can I play 2025?" And then the email is, "Hey, you know, thanks for reaching out. 2025 is booked 3 months ago, but we'll keep an eye on you for 2026." And you're like, "Oh, 2026, man, my hair is getting gray." Like, you know,
You're like, hold on, I
but
might break a hip at that point. I'm not
yeah,
quite
yeah,
there
right
yet,
at this
but
point, but you know,
yeah. So your sound, there's a band out of the Detroit area called Finality that I love a lot. Like those dudes are all really, really good dudes. You guys have a very similar sound. I feel like you both would fit really well on a bill together.
oh, cool. I'm actually not familiar with them, so I'll have to check them out. You said
Yeah,
it's Finality?
yeah.
Yeah,
Do you know Battlecross?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Tony Asta from Battlecross is
Okay.
actually sings in Finality.
Okay, cool. I'm writing it down actually because I'll check it out. That's
Yeah.
the thing too. Like one of the great things about kind of like our little like Midwest scene is, you know, we've had the opportunity to meet a lot of really cool musicians and cool bands and cool promoters and just by virtue of, you know, playing shows and getting out there and trying to get outside of our bubble a little bit, not just being content to be like we're the Chicago band or the Northwest Indiana band, like, you know, going out to Cleveland. We've made a bunch of really cool contacts. There's a bunch of great bands out there. Oathia is from there. They're awesome. Chris, the singer, she's amazing. Such a cool person and just great friend, you know, became a great friend. Tundra, that's kind of a new upstart, man. Those dudes are like 20 years old, you know, and they're ripping. It's awesome, right? So they're great friends. Assault, another Cleveland band, share members of Oathia. Um, Prehistoria is another kind of Indiana band, but they're from 4 different states at this point. I think they're members in Ohio and Indiana and Minnesota and everywhere, but they're great. You know, we love them. You know, like Savage Master, another band that's, you know, has
Yeah.
roots kind of in your neck of the woods. Great band. I think we're playing with them in Chicago in August to haunt Savage Master, and then we're going to be
Oh,
on the bill as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. But it's cool, you know, because it's just like you meet really cool people. They're all like-minded. Everyone kind of props each other up. And I love that. You know, for me,
yeah.
it's just about playing. It's about getting out there and doing it. So it's great to meet like-minded people.
Yeah. I just had Stacy and Adam from Savage Master on.
Awesome. Yeah.
I think it just went when did it go live? Last week or the week before?
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
Uh
I'm good friends with Nick and River just joined too. I know him
yep.
from like Volcandra and
Volcandra.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Played with them. I think Rafe played with Volcandra at Black Circle in Indianapolis like 3 or 4 years ago at this point. They just put out their EP. So I kind of, you know, kept up with those guys. I love their new record. It's awesome.
Oh,
So
dude,
I
that
saw him at I think it was that Savage Master, Screamer, and
Bloodstar.
Bloodstar show up at Reggie's. We all went up there, all the Wraith guys went up there and you know, got to talk with them. And I told them congrats on the release because it's a great record. So
Yeah.
yeah, really cool dude. But that's
It,
exactly what I mean. You know, you meet all these people and they're just great, you know, and it's everyone's working on stuff and it's just all positive, you know. I mean, that to me, that's great. That's kind of like the scene is expanded, right? Because before our scene was like who's in the tri-town area,
mhm.
and now the scene is who's in the tri-state area, who's, you know, we have friends in Louisville and friends in Cleveland and Detroit and you know Milwaukee and all over the place, 2, 3, 4 hours away. But it's cool because you always have a show, we do a lot of that and kind of piggybacking off of shows, or hey, you guys come out here, we'll come out there next time, that sort of.
Yeah.
And it's just really organic. It's cool to see. So what we don't really have in our local scene, I feel like we've kind of expanded now into that Midwest scene.
Well, and it's, really it's a nice relief from like all the bullshit you see like on the news and social media. It's so much negativity and BS. And then right, when you're actually out in the world, you meet people and you connect and you're like, oh, like this is actually really freaking cool, right? And
Yeah. Yep.
you you build the relationships and then you have the ability to one build each other up, but then you're trading shows and you're like, hey, help them promote when that band's playing in your area or whatever, what
Yeah,
have you.
absolutely. Yeah, the networking piece of it is huge. I mean, not only has that been great for, all the aforementioned stuff we just talked about, shows and those sorts of things, but just building those relationships too. I mean, you can pick people's brains and say, hey, what's working for you? What's not working for you? Promotion stuff, social media stuff, all the stuff that kind of goes into, the band, right? I mean, we like to think that, hey, I'm just here to write songs and do that, but I know, I'm kind of the de facto band manager for Idle Throne, and it's just like there's a million things that go into it, right? That you have to kind of be, at least, even if you're not amazing at it, you have to be aware of it and kind of know how to navigate it because it's part of it, right? If you want to get the
Yeah.
music out there. And that's ultimately my main goal is, I mean, I got a day job in my office right now. So like to me, it's not about making a living. I'm not trying to like pay my mortgage and buy dog food off of the band. I just want to get the music out there. I just want those opportunities to play. If I can travel and I can do those sorts of things and kind of do them in service of getting the music out there, to me, it's a win, and
Yeah.
not go broke. If it
Yeah.
can cover itself, that's cool. That's to me, that's a victory. So
Well, and that's, I think kind of referencing what you're saying earlier, right? When you're younger, there's seems to be like a whole lot of bands, and then there are the diehards, I'll say, that keep playing beyond, right? Into the
hmm
30s and 40s. And those people, right, the diehards, they do it because they love it, right?
Yep.
It's there's just a passion or a lust there that you can't live without doing it. And it's funny to watch some of the earlier bands, they break up real easy. Well, we didn't make it. I know we've been going for 2 years. We should have made it by now. I'm done. We're, moving on to whatever. But you especially in current times, you don't get into music to become rich and famous. You get into music because you just
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, I mean that's a really good point. I mean that's the thing too. I always talk to my wife about it because she's a musician too. She understands kind of the drive. I think that propels us forward with all this, or that propels me forward. And she has this saying, and she always gives me shit about it. Whenever we wrap up an album cycle, right, or we wrap up the recording, and we get the mix and the master and the artwork, and it's okay, cool, we're releasing it 6 months from now, whatever. Her joke to me is there's always another album,
yeah,
because to me it's not like I've climbed the mountain now, okay, now I'm going to go back down and settle into the normal routine or whatever. It's okay, well, that's the next mountain, let's go. And that's kind of been for me the cycle for a decade now, and maybe not in the earlier on when I was just doing Minds Horizon, not with the frequency that I kind of would have liked. But I think right now I've finally got to this cadence or this rhythm of releases and writing music and recording music and putting records out every couple years, where I feel like it's good for me. I need to do that. It's a good release. It's a good outlet. Um, the time in my life, I probably had a period between like maybe 20, I don't know what it would be, maybe 2018 and 2020, where I didn't really play a lot out. I mean, I still had all my gear. I still go kind of be the bedroom guitarist and sit down and do that, but I didn't really have a project, that was active in that way. And those are probably the most bummed out years of my life. I mean, not that other good things weren't happening in my personal life and everything, got married in that time frame and, bought a house and did all these other things, but that time where I couldn't really like make it a reality and play and get the songs out and do that. Yeah, it just kind of bummed me out, because to me, I can see it, I can see the next Idle Throne record in my head already. I can see the cover. I know what it's going to look like. I know what I want it to sound like, And it helps keep me organized because having a project like that, I have a whiteboard in my little writing room at home, and it's got working song titles and kind of the sequence and artwork ideas and all these other sorts of things. And like to me, it's a really good kind of like balancing process, you know what I mean? Like to do all those things, that kind of like keeps me grounded and it keeps me after the next thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's been really good for me, and that's why right now I feel like it's great. It's a great routine and kind of rhythm that I found myself in, and I love
Uh,
being busy with it.
that's good. I think a
Love
lot
it.
of people miss that, right? They don't have like we're creatures of routine, right? And if we can find that cadence and
Yeah.
just
Yep.
do it, right? It just is what it is. Like that's we're comfortable, we're creative, we got to keep really
Yeah.
moving forward.
Absolutely.
So the current album or it's not released yet. Clarion Call, right?
Yep.
When is the release date for that?
So it's May 31st. So about 2 weeks.
Right on.
Yeah.
What are uh what are your expectations or hopes when it's released?
It's one of those things where I think musically on this record is a little different. Like whenever you write a record and it's the first record with a band, right? A lot of bands don't even get that far where they have the first record done, right?
Right.
We did that first record and it was kind of like us trying to gel all these influences together and kind of get to know each other as musicians because we've all been friends, right? But that doesn't necessarily translate into, hey, you're gonna make great music together or whatever. So I think the first one was really us trying to find kind of our place in the musical world, right? On the
Hmm.
musical scene. And we had all those different elements in there. There's the progressive stuff, there's the thrashy stuff, there's the power metal stuff, there's the neoclassical, the shred, the traditional stuff, all that. And I think through the experience of making that record and then playing live on it quite a bit and kind of seeing what worked for us and what songs we really enjoyed playing live and what songs kind of really went over live, all that. That's really what helped us formulate the second record. I don't think we had any intent to like put a record out 2 years after the first one, but we just had the material. We had these songs we felt really, really good about. And we got to a point where like we had the 8 tracks and we're like, yeah, eight, that's a good number. That's kind of a classic metal record, right? It's like 50 minutes long. So it's not too long. We're not pushing it. The last one was about an hour long. We're like, well, we could write more songs. We could keep going. And we just decided against it. Just felt right. I mean, we've got tons of other music that's kind of sitting there ready to be, expanded on, but it felt right. We went through the process and kind of did it all, tweaked some things from last time, did a few different things with the production, did a few different things with just kind of like the different influences and elements we brought in. We brought in some newer influences and a little bit more kind of modern influences in terms of, you know, really asking ourselves the question, like, what sort of band do we want to be? And I think we have come to the kind of the consensus that as time goes on, we're aiming more towards like being like a Symphony X sort of band. We want to be a little bit more progressive and kind of have that shine through and always retain those other elements. But I feel like Clarion Call, the record, is kind of our first step in that direction, really cementing that, we're a modern band. We really kind of want to go after this sort of sound. We're going to start expanding on a lot of those elements. There's more keyboards on this album. Martin's a, proficient keyboard player. So we did a lot more layering and we did a lot of different sounds. There's Hammond organ in parts. There's all these other things that we really didn't do on the first one. So my hope is that, when people listen to the record, they kind of hear us being us and they hear our personality coming through even more than it did on the first record. I'm super proud of that first record. I mean, I love Sibylline Age to death. There's some stuff on there that, the instrumental track Last Full Measure is like just one of the coolest things I've ever been involved in musically. I'm so proud of it. I think the title track is like this 12-minute little mini epic. I mean, I love it to death, really kind of expanded our writing a lot and composition and just really trying to like go for it and be ambitious, but still do it in a way where the average person's gonna hopefully latch onto it, and it doesn't
Yeah.
alienate people. That's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to like have our cake and eat it too, not go too far in that other direction where people are like, what the fuck is this? But still kind of have it be challenging and fun to play and, get those concepts in there and get all the other stuff that we're nerds about, total prog metal, prog rock
Yeah.
nerds. So I just hope, people see that and they see and hear kind of the passion, but they appreciate the ambition and what we're trying to do. And that we start kind of developing our own niche and our own sound a little bit in the scene. That's kind of what I'm hoping. And I think, the singles we've released so far have been super well received. Seems like everyone really, really enjoys it a lot.
They're
And
both fucking fantastic songs, dude.
it's great for me to hear people that, jumped on Sibylline and they heard that record and they've been following us. Maybe they've seen us live. Um, Now listen to the new tracks and say, I can't wait for the record. This is awesome. Like, I love the direction you guys are going. Because to me, it's like, I don't know if you've heard the whole record yet, but
Mm-mm.
there's folks that you've heard the singles. And I think, like, I love the singles. I'm proud of all those songs. The coolest stuff on the record is stuff no one's heard yet.
Right on.
The opening track, Eclipticon, is like nuts. It's like a total like Metallica, Bay Area little mini epic. It's 8 minutes long. It's got all these twists and turns, really aggressive, really heavy riffs, great drumming, just super intense. System Simulacrum, same way. That's later in the record. Total like voivod, real weird, some dissonant kind of chromatic runs and odd times and all sorts of real like Coroner. That was another kind of touch point, that sort of stuff, right? So no one's even heard that yet. So to me, it's just really cool that if you're open-minded, right, and you're along for the ride and you just don't necessarily need your metal to be completely uniform from one track to the next. We still know
Yeah.
it's the same band, but we can kind of do a little bit of stylistic shifting from song to song. Then, those are the folks who are, hey, jump aboard, because there's plenty more of that. We still want you to know that it's Idle Throne, but that we can experiment a little bit within the confines of kind of what we're doing. So
I think the cool thing about music, right, is there's a place for both bands, right? The kind of band that does the copy paste with their songs and you know what you're getting every single time. And then I'm a real big fan of bands that evolve, right? That constantly evolve, because it's like for me as a fan, I love AC/DC, but after listening to one of their albums, you've heard every one of their albums,
yeah, yeah.
right? You just know what you're getting every time. So like when a band is constantly evolving, you can step out and take a listen, and you have to be open-minded, right? You can't go out there and say, okay, you have to fit in this box,
Hmm.
but to see bands, they improve on musicianship, that might change something in production, and then to transfer that expansion to a live setting is like Volcandra's new album. Holy shit, it's right. They went from a real heavy like black metal to, now it's like a mellow death
Hmm.
thing, and it's been such a fantastic progression,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know. So I'm excited to hear all the things you're telling me about the new album. Now I'm like, damn it, why can't I just hear it yet?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, that's the cool thing for me. It's I would my musical kind of personality, I guess, is not the type where I would be satisfied just kind of doing the same thing, especially in a band where like, I definitely with Idle Throne, I feel that sense of ownership because Martin and I started it, it all started with a conversation we had, and here we are 6 years later. And we're about to put our second record out. We've got the third record probably on deck. We've got tons of music that is just in the works right now. So we'll make it to album 3 for sure, right? We'll probably make it to album 4, if not more. I mean, I don't want to go too far ahead, but like there's a pretty rich future with the band, and that is great. It's a great feeling knowing that you've got, all this material and all this music. But to me, I couldn't just put the same album out four,
Right.
five, six, 7 times. To me, it's always about bringing in some new influence. I listen to tons of metal and different genres of metal. I listen to tons of music in general. So to me, it's like, oh, cool. Well, yeah, we're doing the thrash thing, but it'd be cool maybe to bring in this, and this is more of a death metal thing, or maybe we're gonna do some minery trim pick stuff, and then now there's a black metal influence. There's a song I'm working on for probably what'll be our third record that has tons of kind of black metal influence, not in a blast beat way, right? But more of kind of the progression, the chord progression, the tonality of it, those sorts of things. So I don't think any of that stuff, they aren't necessarily dirty words, it's just if it works and it makes sense and we can add that whatever that flourish is that makes it sound like Idle Throne, then we're open-minded to it. So, and that's really cool. It's cool to be playing in a band where everyone kind of feels the same way with that too.
Yeah,
So
that's
we're
real
not
hard to
closing it
find,
off. Yeah, yeah,
so it's nice to have, the friendship, the musicianship, and people that are
totally.
open to, hey, let's go and do this. Because I mean, I think a lot of bands, that's a make or break for them, right?
Yeah,
We have to stay this course. Well, I want to do this. Well, you're out. Let's bring someone that wants to stay the course. Funny. We look at, I think a lot of people reference Metallica, right? With Metallica Changed,
hmm,
and we look at early days with Kill 'Em All to Ride the Lightning. Those are two completely different albums. Like Metallica has been one of those bands that has constantly evolved, and you know frankly, some of the stuff is, my opinion, lackluster. But they've got some really, really good songs throughout their entire career,
yeah, absolutely.
so
Oh, that's one thing I respect, of them, like a band like that too, right? I mean, they've started at the bottom. They're playing Soldier Field and they're playing, the massive venues, right? They've won the awards, they've done all that stuff. But that is one band where I feel like even if you don't, you listen to like 72 Seasons or something or Hardwired or whatever, Death Magnetic, and you're like, yeah, I don't know, it really isn't doing it for me anymore, or it doesn't have those elements that I really love. Like, I feel like they're still a band that's true to what they want to do. I think 72 Seasons was the record they wanted to make.
yep.
And I have to respect that because, it would be, I think, there'd be less integrity in that situation if they just tried to copy paste, another master. You're never going to get another master of puppets. It's just not
No.
going to happen. So the fact that they're, doing that, like, sure, it's a little bit groovier maybe than I would personally like, but there's some really good stuff in there. So I think that you have to respect the artist for that if they're kind of still trying to be on their own timetable and call their own shots. And there's certainly a band that can do it. I mean, let's be real.
Well,
They can
yeah,
do
I
whatever
mean,
they want.
they've been around 40 something years at this
Yep.
point. They absolutely, you know, have the right to do whatever the hell they want. I mean, I think they've got their own record label. Hell, they bought their own record pressing plant so they could just
Hmm.
press their own stuff. Like,
Yep.
talk about how many of us would love to be in that position, like, yeah, I've got my own record pressing plant, like it just presses
Hmm.
my records. Uh, and they're 60-ish, right? So to see them still going at it 40 years later is like, man, good for you guys,
Yeah, seriously.
you know?
That's cool. I mean, that's the dream, right? It's like that's why there's such a touch point for any band. You bring that up. I mean, it's like them and even, that's the thing, like Maiden too. Like I know, Maiden, and we talk about like Priest and like the big metal bands, like even that's a little different because the type of aggressive music that Metallica was playing, especially in the heyday, right? The 80s
Yeah,
heyday was just so much more aggressive even than what a lot of those new wave British heavy metal bands were doing that there's really no other analog to that. Like Metallica is probably the hardest band that ever got that big.
yeah.
So the fact that like, to your point, here it is 40 plus years later and they are still doing it and they have all these kind of accolades and they're calling their own shots is it's inspiring. I don't think there'll ever be a band that'll get there again in that sphere, but at the same time, it's cool.
uh, you never know. I always hope, right?
Yeah.
I'm a fan of a lot of, like you, right, a lot of different music. And any time that I'm a fan, I want someone to be successful. I want them to have all the success. And I always hope, right? Like, as a young kid, I always hoped, like, oh, I want some of my metal bands to be, as big as some of these pop artists. And, now I'm almost 50, and it's like they're there.
Hmm.
Slayer was playing
Yeah.
these huge arenas. Now we've got Metallica selling everywhere out, Iron Maiden's selling out.
Yeah.
What is it? Brazil, I think. One of the South American countries, when they go play, like the country shuts down, they
Yeah.
broadcast it on the TV. Like,
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
that's so crazy,
Yeah.
you
Big
know?
time. But it's cool. It's such a unifying thing, you know.
Yeah. So what are some bands that you listen to or have seen play that you think should get some recognition?
Like peer bands, like bands we played
Yeah,
with, or you think like bigger bands that like influences?
I would say more pure bands.
Sure, yeah. Oh geez. So, I mentioned a lot of them in the list. So Prehistoria, great band. I think they're gonna be releasing a record later this year. I know they just finished recording it, so hopefully it comes out. I'd love to play with them again. We were even talking about maybe trying to do like a run with them, but I know with their membership being kind of in different states, sometimes it requires a little bit more finagling of schedules and working that out. But they're great. Aletheia is great. Like you said, Assault, Volcandra, Savage Master, what a great show. There, and like Nick is just such a sweetheart dude. I mean, I love Nick to death. He's so cool. We're always messaging. He'll post on his social media guitar stuff on his stories, and I'll message him. He'll message me back, and then we get into a whole conversation about guitar stuff. So that's cool. Um,
He's and that dude is like always going with
yeah,
his, like
yeah,
he
big
he
time.
he plays. I don't know, is he still playing in War Cloud?
I haven't seen him do anything with Warcloud in a while, but I know like he's doing like what is it, Storm Ruler? Like they're
Yeah.
on tour right now. They just started a tour. He just got done with Savage Master. He's always doing all this stuff. So that's really cool to see. But yeah, Assault is great. We've got a lot of friends kind of in the Wraith sphere, that play, I'm trying to think. So Acid Mass, that's Ben Ricketts. He's a good friend of ours. He kind of has had that project going for a few years now. I don't think he's played live yet. It's kind of one man band right now, but he's doing great stuff. Our friends in the Gavel, they're kind of another Chicago, kind of like black thrash, a little bit of hardcore influence, really cool dudes. Grave Ripper, they're great friends of ours too. We've played with them a ton. Yeah, just, I don't know. For me, that's kind of the thing. I think you can see it right away in any of these instances we've had the ability to travel and play with these bands. Like, you always know who your kindred spirits with. And I love that when we go, even if they're people we've never met before. Gavel was a great example of that. So I played with, where were we at? We were both kind of out of towners, right? Because you got Wraith, we're in Northwest Indiana too. That's like the other dudes that played music. So I'm in like multiple bands, and it's just like a big group of like 15 dudes, and we're all in each other's bands and stuff because we're the only musicians that stayed, playing our instruments. But we were up in Milwaukee, and then Gavel, they're from like out, I don't know, they're like suburbs. I don't know if they're like northwest suburbs or whatever, but we both of us are playing in Milwaukee supporting another band, and just immediately knew like these dudes are cool, like cut from the same cloth, BSing about music, similar sort of tastes in guitars and gear and all that. And like to me, that's great because then it's not only about the music and all the other things you mentioned, the networking and picking people's brains and stuff, but then it forms friendships.
Yeah.
And then and all those bands I mentioned, we're friends with them. I can message any one of them right now and check in and say, hey, how's it going? What are you guys working on? What's new? You coming through? They come through Chicago, we're there, we go check them out, if we're able to, and vice versa. So that's always really cool to me. But yeah, it's hard workers. I think most of those bands, if not all of them, have had music come out recently, or they've got stuff that they're working on, whether it be live stuff or releases, recordings, whatever. So, it's great to see.
Yeah. Well, and I think a really important thing right there is that connection. It's uh I think a lot of people are missing that actual connection now, and that's a large part of the reason we have so many mental health issues is they're not getting out and connecting with like-minded humans where, the 2020 was a really hard year for all of us mentally, like to be locked away and not be able to go out and go to shows. Like if I'm addicted to something, it's going out and seeing a band play, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
and to not be able to do that, like I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah.
You know, because hell, I mean, you go out to shows and you see your friends. They might not be in a band. It might just be people in the crowd, but you're
Yeah.
giving hugs and like, hey, what's up? And it's you,
Yeah. If anything, for me, that was like a really big thing coming out of COVID. I remember the first show that I actually went to see, and this is crazy, not scheduled or anything, but it popped up in my memories today on Facebook. It was down at Black Circle in Indy. What would it have been? Whatever it was, 2021. So 3 years ago
yeah.
today, right? It was Narcotic Wasteland, which is Dallas from Nile. That's his band.
Hmm.
It was Throne from Detroit. I think
Love
they're from
those
Detroit.
dudes.
Yeah, awesome. Nate's a great. I was just talking to Nate the other day. Um,
Yeah, me too.
Centenary,
Oh,
Centenary,
Jim. Yeah.
also love them. Cool dudes, right? Great show, but it was just like I went there and that was the first show that I had, been able to like see and go to. And it was Indy, so it's 2 hours away from where I live. But all those bands were playing there. That was the closest date, and I just really wanted to go. And it was outside, the weather was beautiful. I went there with a buddy, and it was just like this feeling and kind of like you're getting at, like this, wow, I missed this. And then
Yeah.
I remember the first show back, the first show I played coming out of COVID era, it was Wraith was able to play. It was I think we played with I think Grave Ripper was at that show too. We played outside and I think it was like June. So it was a couple months, it was June 2021, I want to say. Packed to the gills. I mean, it was like 500-600 people out there at Black Circle out on the outdoor area. Um, Incredible show, great energy. Everyone, you could tell it was pent up. Everyone was going to 11, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I remember right before we played the last song, you had weather moving in, and it was just like hit the first note, lightning. It was like out of a movie, right? We were playing, we closed with the song Devil's Hour, which is always what Wraith closes with. And we hit the last note and we rang out the big A, big wash. Sky opened up, downpour. And I just remember grabbing my guitar and my wife was standing on the balcony. I threw my guitar up to her so it didn't, shock me and kill me dead. Try to get all the gear covered up and everything else. And we were just scrambling for like 2 minutes trying to get everything, because it was downpouring. But it was a great memory. And it was the same thing too. It was just like, I feel like that to me in that moment, I was like, man, I will never take this for granted again because you never know when that can get taken away from you. And I think pre-COVID, pre not being able to play shows for almost a year and a half, I loved it, but I never really put that value and emphasis on it that I do now.
Because
Now,
there was always tomorrow, and
yeah,
now there might not be a tomorrow.
yeah, every show I can go to, I go to. Every
Yeah.
show that I have the opportunity to play, Monday night show in Chicago on the north side. All right, let's do it. I love playing. I want to be there. And you never
Yeah.
know when it can get taken away from you. So
Yeah, it's nice. I feel like pre-COVID, the attendance was like super hit and miss,
yeah.
and post-COVID, like that attendance has really ramped up.
Yeah. Seems like every show, which is great. And hopefully it holds out. Hopefully that is just kind of the new norm now. And everyone else kind of had that same
Yeah,
realization, right? So
yeah. But
yeah.
like Belushi Speedball had a album release show Saturday night,
Yeah.
and it was nuts, dude. Like
Oh,
there
I
was
bet.
there's
Well, their
probably
their show is nuts on a normal,
yeah,
let alone an album release. I bet
yeah.
that was wild. Yeah. I've seen them a handful of times. They're a riot.
Yeah, I love those
Yeah.
dudes. They're all really good dudes.
Yeah.
They're actually getting ready to play Milwaukee Metal Fest. I think they're doing a little run. They hit Akron, Detroit, then Milwaukee Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Cool, yeah. Yeah, we're playing I think this upcoming Friday the 17th, we're playing Livewire in Chicago with Ex Mortis and Bloodletter.
Oh, right
So that
on.
would be a pretty cool show. We're doing that one Friday and then I think Monday I'm coming down to Indy. My sister and her husband live in Indy and I'm coming down for the Symphony X Heathen show. They're kind of doing a little tour around Milwaukee Metal Fest
Yeah.
and that's the closest date. So I'm going to be there because those are two of my favorite bands. If you ask me like why Idle Throne exists, it's because of Symphony X and Heathen. You could pretty much put those two together. And if little Jason 20 years ago hadn't found those bands, then I probably wouldn't be doing half of the guitar things that I try to do. So love that. So that'll be really cool. It should be a good weekend. But yeah,
Yeah.
all the bands that are playing Milwaukee Metal Fest and everything else. I hope it's a great time for him. I've seen tons of footage and stuff from that last year and kind of the revived Milwaukee Metal Fest, and it looks like a total blast. So, but get up there before long. It just didn't work out with some of the other obligations this year,
Yeah.
but I'd like to, if not play it next year with one of the bands, I'd love to attend. Because they always get such a great lineup of bands, really diverse lineup.
Well, and that's a good thing. Like Josta bringing it back, he's, I think first him being just a music fan and to reinvigorate like Milwaukee, and I think he's redoing the New England Metal Fest too, which is it's fucking fantastic. And those lineups are stacked. Like, man,
Yeah.
I'd love to be there this year, but same thing, right? Other obligations I got going on. So
Yep.
yeah, I'll get there probably next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, it seems like it's been successful, so I think they'll keep doing it. I'm sure he'll keep putting it on, and people keep coming, right? So he kind of reestablished it, and hopefully it's just the beginning. So
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it is. I feel like it's just the beginning for a lot of things right now.
yeah, yep,
Awesome. Jason, I'm really looking forward to hearing the new album in a whole. I'm one of the old guys. I want to listen to it front to back, get the whole concept, whatever,
yeah,
smashed into my head. I'm really excited. I appreciate you taking time out of your night to come and chat with me about
yeah.
Idle
Thanks for having me,
Thrones
man.
and all the random shit that we talked about.
Yeah, no, it's a
Uh,
blast, man.
Hell yeah. Well, go have yourself a great night, brother.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thanks. See ya.
Yep.